Welcome back to Bumblebee. Here are the top 10 spoiled princesses in history, part 2. Yeah, there's more. They're pretty spoiled. They're pretty brutal. Here we go. Kicking off the list at number 10, Charlotte of Prussia. This princess was the eldest daughter of Prince Frederick. Back in the late 1800s, her nickname was Sweet Naughty Little Didda. So 1800s, what a weird nickname, so weird. Her grandparents were the talk of a few towns, I would say. One King Wilhelm and one Queen Augusta. They spoiled Charlotte. I mean, sure, she was a literal princess, so we kind of expected that, but she acted spoiled. That was the difference. She didn't want to study while she was in school. After she married her cousin, classic royal history there. After that, she disappeared off to Berlin. She chose the party life instead of the, well, marrying your cousin life. Until her death in 1919 at the age of 59, Princess Charlotte was the center of many scandals. A time before Twitter. Imagine that. They're like, yeah, that's all we know. An entire lifetime of scandals. We're like, yes, she was a troubled young lady. We don't know anything. We know nothing. We know so little about history. Also, I'm Team Charlotte. Yeah, go live your life. Enjoy it. Don't marry your cousin. Go party. Go have fun. Number 9. Charlotte of Belgium. Another Charlotte. What's going on here? Are we in the multiverse? How many spoiled princesses named Charlotte are we going to see on this list? I'll never tell. It's 2. It's definitely 2. The daughter of King Leopold of Belgium, again, as you could have guessed, was lined up to marry her cousin. Hey, history, we're learning. Look at that, patterns. Archduke Maximilian of Austria, classic mid-1800s stuff. There we go. This was all set in motion, but then in comes Napoleon III. Guy just ruined this entire marriage. The French emperor at the time, this was in the 1860s, he was like, hey, Maximilian, I know you're super happy, love the new, awesome, congratulations with that stuff, really good stuff. Want to move to Mexico and work for me? Great. The entire family was like, say no, please. But Maximilian accepted the job anyways and left. Once they arrived in Mexico, she wasn't part of the picture, nor was the family for that matter. She realized Maximilian married her for her wealth and status. Yeah, not love after all. It's not very nice. So she became upset, rightfully so, and quite paranoid. Also rightfully so. She moved on, as a matter of fact. She met another man, had a child with him. I don't want to say spoiled, but as far as princesses go, this was unheard of behavior at the time. Again, I am rooting for this one. She passed in 1927, an old woman, so she wasn't taken out horribly or anything afterwards. She actually had somewhat of a life, which is nice. Now the list starts to get a little dark. Number 8, Cleopatra. Yeah, talk about family problems. We're heading back to ancient history. Talk about family problems. Okay, we're heading back to ancient Egypt for this royalty. Royalty. You see it. When Ptolemy VII died back in 51 BCE, naturally the throne was passed on to his son, Ptolemy the 8th. There we go. And Cleopatra the 7th. Now both children were assigned to said throne, Cleopatra being 18 and her brother only being 10 years old. So Cleopatra became the main bread and butter here. She was pretty much the ruler, and in typical ancient fashion, the two had to get married. Gross. Yeah, you gotta keep it in the family, yet again. A couple years passed, and with Cleopatra trying to run the show, little brother wasn't having it. Or rather, little husband and co-ruler wasn't having it. Eventually, Cleopatra was pushed out of Alexandria. Her greed for power over her little brothers, equally a co-ruler, had her driven out ultimately. But don't fret, once she met Julius Caesar, the help of the Roman army allowed for her return to Egypt, but this time with more power. Caesar then reinstated Cleopatra as queen. Hashtag she's back. Number 7, Isabella of France. If you ever wondered how King Edward II passed away, well, here you go. I got your back. Back in the early 1300s, Isabella of France was in a relationship with King Edward II of England. They didn't see eye to eye on politics, which is, okay, that's fair, more than fair. And Edward's company surely didn't help, all of his guys, his advice, One of his advisors tried to push Isabella out of the king's circle. This was 1318. Isabella wasn't on board here, and after being ignored for pretty much 2 years, she just left. She was like, forget this, you and all your boys club, I'm just leaving. She left for France. Edward refused to return King Charles IV's land, so Charles and now Isabella, both siblings, don't forget, they both invaded England and took out the king. Wow, that's like the finale of a Game of Thrones season. Their son was then named the ruler of England. Yeah, don't mess with Isabella of France. She'll leave, and then she'll come back. Number 6, Empress Julia Agrippina. Another ancient Roman classic. Yeah, we've mentioned Nero on this channel before, more than once, of course. He's a bit of an oddball. But his mother, Empress Julia Agrippina, she was up to no good long before Nero's days. She fully believed that the empire belonged to her, so she manipulated her uncle Claudius so he would change the Roman laws surrounding family marriage. Yeah, odd. It's always about this, huh? Gross. A little spoiled, I'd say. Even to this day, Claudius's death is a mysterious one. Many believe this empress took her own uncle out. I'm not gonna lie, I'd believe it at this point. Her and Nero ruled Rome from 49 to 54 CE, but Nero, spoiler alert, pushed her out of power. Even Nero was like, yeah, you're up to something here, miss. Get out of here. I'm all set. Number 5, Irene of Athens. She once ruled from 797 CE to 802 CE. These are quite old, but we're still talking about family issues, always. She co-ruled with her son for a couple of years. That seems to be the common theme always. Her son being Emperor Constantine VI. It's a Greek tragedy what happened here, really. See, Irene's main goal was to gain control over the Byzantine Empire. The only way to do so, Irene figured, was to lead a conspiracy. Yeah, she got political allies on board, spread some rumors, and eventually it worked. Constantine was finally kicked out and blinded, believe it or not. Yeah, it was just brutal, brutal stuff. All because of his mother's orders and rumors. Number 4, Joan of Kent. Heading over to the 14th century England, Joan of Kent, also known as the most beautiful woman in all of England at the time. Not a bad title at all. She was also known to be quite loving. She was nice. She earned the nickname the Fair Maid of Kent. That's a nice nickname. Historical nicknames, they can be hit or miss. That's good. The son of King Edward III even fell in love with her at this time. Things are going well. The pair got married finally in 1361, and folks were just not having it. Joan at the time was 31 years old. She was already a mother to 4 children, and Joan was previously married, even before this whole royal engagement. So everybody was, of course, up in arms about the entire ordeal. Yet Joan was 12 years old the first marriage. She married a knight named Tom Holland. And when Tom went to war, the son of the Earl of Salisbury came in to ask for her hand in marriage. That's how nice she was. Everybody wanted her. There's no way to know if Tom Holland would return, so she assumed that he had died in battle. So she said yes, and then Thomas came back from said battle. And yeah, he was still alive. And now he was unhappy. And a legal battle soon followed that one. In the end, Thomas won that battle and him and Joan raised the 4 children. But after he passed, she then became the first ever Princess of Wales. And again, people weren't happy about it because she had a history. Number 3, Olga of Kiev. This one also feels like it's from Game of Thrones. Yeah, not much is known to the Ukrainian royal here, but back in 903 AD, her ruling began, and history was never the same. Her husband was the soon-to-be Igor, ruler of the Kievan Rus. Now come 945, the Drevilians prevailed and took out the king, leaving one Olga in charge. Now an angry, heartbroken Olga in charge. The Drevilians actually told Olga to marry their own prince at this point. Yeah, they were just adding insult to injury. So Olga said, okay, sure, come over, let's talk shop, let's do it. So they sent 20 men to go and talk about this arranged marriage and, get planning. Olga told the 20 to go and wait in the bathhouse and then she'll meet them. Well, Olga never arrived. When the men arrived, they locked the doors on the bathhouse, and there was fire and a lot of bad stuff inside. Can't really talk about it, but they were trapped. They didn't leave. That was just the beginning. Olga then invited 5,000 Drevilians over for a feast. And once everybody came over and ate and drank and had a good time, she straight up red weddinged her entire company. It was horrible. She was still very upset. This was the same lady who promoted Christianity, don't forget. She was a literal saint. Yeah, historically we refer to her as a saint. Still, how funny is that? Number 2, Elizabeth Bathory. The Hungarian noblewoman was everything but noble, honestly. This was a rough go. Back in the late 16th century and even in the early 17th century, Elizabeth would meet these young peasants and then ask them to come work at her castle. She promised them a high-paying job as a servant. Sounds bad, but really that's a way better deal than being broke outside of the castle, so many times, if not all these times, these poor people would say yes, they would agree, and they would come back to the castle. When they arrived to the castle, she would harm them. She would trap them, just bad stuff. Then finally, once she was bored or ready for the next house guest, she would finish them off brutally. The number of fatalities here apparently was somewhere around 80 peasants, but historically, that number has gone up to around 600 in some accounts. So 800 to 600 people. That's really bad. Come 1611, things changed. She was locked up in her own castle with barely any sunlight. Nice. She was feeling the weight of her own actions. Finally, hopefully, right? But then 4 years later in 1614, she sadly passed away. Next to Vlad the Impaler, she's been a large inspiration behind Bram Stoker's Dracula. Yeah, just saying that alone, I should have led with that, really. Number 1, Queen Ranavalona. The last queen of Madagascar, Queen Ranavalona. One of the worst historically. She had quite the temper. She was born in 1788. She ruled over the kingdom for 33 years in total. That's a long time. She's remembered as cruel, violent, and would often choose violence first in order to preserve independence over the island. She's known as the most ruthless queen in history, and after the death of her husband, she just went insane. She went mad with said power. In the late 1700s, King Adrian originally brought peace to the land, but naturally, there were traditionalists who opposed him. This isn't new historically. The king's uncle at one point tried to take him out, but a local warned the king beforehand. Nice. We love that, nice hot tip. The king repaid said local by adopting his daughter, one Ranavalona, to marry his son, Prince Radama. Sounds like a good idea? Not really. This is like Game of Thrones again. When the prince was alive, they didn't get along, and come 1810, the king passed away, giving Ranavalona the promotion of a lifetime. Rumor has it Ranavalona poisoned him. Just a rumor, but it's fitting as to what follows. Ranavalona kept away the advances of the French and the British by leaving bodies of those who tried to attack prior just out on display. Yeah, just sitting there on the beach. Imagine the smell. That's a horrible sight. In 1845, Queen Ranavalona ordered 50,000 subjects to build roads across the jungle for 4 months. This massive buffalo hunt. Whatever, but well, 10,000 of those poor souls died of starvation and exhaustion, and not one buffalo was brought back. It was all just a sham. Horrible, right? Yep, that's history. Those are the top 10 spoiled princesses in history part 2. If you want a part 3, yeah, there's definitely 10 more. We'll see you next time. I'm Taylor McWaters. Bye. Just ran out of saliva in the middle of that one. I was like, no.